When used properly, your Vermeer brush chipper will give you many hours of productive service. It is equipped with useful safety features to help protect you from serious injury. But safe work practices are also a necessary part of accident prevention. If not used properly, a brush chipper is capable of grabbing you and pulling you into the machine and into the cutting knives. Death or serious injury will be the result. You must exercise caution and use good judgment. Your safety depends on it. This video will present selected operating procedures for Vermeer brush chippers, but this video is not a substitute for thorough and complete reading and understanding of the operator's manual and its safety instructions. You may have a Vermeer model brush chipper with an in-feed system or machine components that look different than the ones shown in this video. However, most operating functions of these machines are the same. Before operating the machine, always read the operator's manual, know its contents, and follow its instructions. Allow only responsible, properly trained people to operate the brush chipper. Carefully supervise any inexperienced operators. All operators must be familiar with the worksite safety rules and regulations and must be mentally and physically capable of operating the machine safely. Advise anyone who will operate it to read the operator's manual carefully and watch this video. As you prepare the brush chipper for transporting to your cutting site, there are a number of important safety precautions to keep in mind. For your specific model, refer to the operator's manual for selecting the correct towing vehicle and hitching up your brush chipper. If you will be working along the side of a road, use the necessary traffic diversion methods to redirect motor vehicles and pedestrian traffic. Follow your local highway codes and regulations. Feed all material into the brush chipper from the curb side of the unit. This will allow you to stay away from traffic. Never set up a chipper directly beneath the tree that your crew is pruning or removing. Provide enough room around the chipper for the operator to maneuver while feeding brush. Clear away any brush or obstacles that might interfere or cause the operator to trip or stumble while feeding brush. Examine your brush pile periodically while you chip to make sure none of your material contains stones, wire, nails, or other metal objects which may damage cutting knives or become dangerous projectiles. The discharge chute is equipped with a stop to prevent discharging material over the feed table area. Material leaving the chute can cause injury or blindness. Never discharge the chips where there might be bystanders or co-workers. Rotate the discharge chute to the direction you want to deposit the chip material and lock the chute in position. Fold down your feed table. Its design is essential for safety when feeding the chipper. The machine must never be operated with the feed table removed or modified. The brush chipper feed table is equipped with a lower feed stop bar system that provides a means for the operator to quickly stop the feed rollers if snagged by a branch and pulled toward the machine. Stopping the feed rollers is accomplished by bumping the lower feed stop bar. The location of the bar makes it possible for the operator's leg to strike the bar and shut off the feed either intentionally or automatically in an emergency situation. If the operator's leg does not strike the bar, the feed will not stop. It is therefore very important to follow all safety instructions for feeding material into the chipper. These instructions are essential for your safety by helping you avoid an emergency situation in the first place. Carefully review the safety sign on your machine and review similar instructions in your operator's manual. We will demonstrate these safety procedures for feeding brush later in this video. To prepare for brush feeding, all operators must use proper personal protective equipment. These include a hard hat, hearing protection, either earplugs or earmuff type protectors, Eye protection. This may consist of wraparound safety glasses, safety goggles, or safety glasses with a full face shield. And safety shoes. Some conditions may also require reflective clothing. If you wear gloves, gloves with wide flared cuffs must not be worn. They are more likely to be snagged by a branch and possibly pull you towards the infeed mechanism or the cutting knives. Gloves must be loose-fitting with narrow cuffs to reduce the chance of being snagged by a branch. Before you start the engine, make sure that all personnel are clear of the machine, the feed control bar is in neutral, and that the clutch is disengaged. Start up the engine following the instructions in the operator's manual for your particular machine. Allow the engine to idle for a minute or two to warm up. Follow the instructions in your operator's manual for engaging the chipping mechanism and increasing the engine speed to operating levels. Your brush chipper is equipped with an upper feed control bar and lower feed stop bar. Do not operate the chipper unless both control bars are installed and operating correctly. To check the lower feed stop bar, position the upper feed control bar for forward feeding and start the feed rollers. Bump the lower feed stop bar with your hand or leg to stop the in-feed mechanism. To check the upper feed control bar, position the bar for forward feeding and start the feed rollers. Push the bar to the center stop position, to reverse, and back to forward. Pull the bar to the rear stop position. Make sure the feed control bar allows you to quickly stop the rollers. Do not continue unless both of these control bars are working properly. Once you are ready to begin feeding brush, place the feed control bar back into forward feed and start the feed rollers. Vermeer brush chippers are equipped with feed roller speed control. You can adjust the feed roller speed for slower or faster feeding depending on the type of material you are working with. Vermeer chippers are designed to help keep you away from the feed mechanism and cutting knives by providing a long feed chute and feed table. All Vermeer chippers have feed tables with sloped sides. This design allows you to feed brush from the side. When feeding brush this way, the sides of the feed table help protect you from being pulled into the machine by providing a barrier between you and the in-feed mechanism. But it is also essential that you do your part by following important safety precautions while operating the machine. Make it a practice to always feed from the side rather than directly behind the machine. As soon as the limb starts feeding, release the limb and turn away. Let the feed mechanism pull the material into the machine. To inform you and other workers of potential hazards and essential safety precautions, safety signs are placed on the machine. Keep these safety signs in good condition and replace any that are damaged or missing. If your brush chipper has Auto Feed 2 or Smart Feed, these systems help to improve feeding efficiency by allowing you to start the feeding process and then turn away. Large limbs with protruding branches may present a hazard unless you handle them correctly. All chippers which are capable of feeding a limb are also capable of pulling you in with the limb. This risk can be reduced by following these important safety precautions. Always feed material with the base entering the feed mechanism first. If you feed the tip of the limb first, a protruding branch or V-shaped limb can catch you and pull you towards the feed mechanism. By feeding the base first, any protruding branches will tend to slip past you without catching you or your clothing. Sometimes during feeding, a limb may suddenly turn or move sideways and strike you. To reduce the possibility of being struck, release the limb immediately after it begins feeding and then turn away. If material being fed strikes the lower feed stop bar and stops the in-feed mechanism, you may use one of the following procedures. You may override the feed stop system by engaging and holding the reset control and feeding the material into the chipper until it has passed over the lower feed stop bar. You can also resume chipping by placing the upper feed control bar into reverse, backing out and reposition the material. Then place the upper feed control bar into forward feeding and refeed the material. When feeding short material, never climb onto the feed table to hand feed material into the feed mechanism. If you climb onto the feed table for closer access with the machine operating, you are in great danger. You can be killed or lose an arm or leg. If you climb onto the feed table to reach for short branches or twigs, they can feed into the machine before you can let go. Or you might accidentally get too close and touch the feed mechanism. Do not try to kick material into the feed rollers. If the feed mechanism or blades catch your foot, you will not be able to pull yourself free. Do not depend on the upper control bar or the lower feed stop bar to stop the feed mechanism and prevent you from being pulled into the machine. You may not be able to reach the bar or have time to move the bar to stop the feed mechanism. When feeding short material, always stand to the side of the feed table and use a wood object such as a branch to push the material into the feed mechanism. If AutoFeed 2 or SmartFeed is unsuccessful in feeding material and you have problems with jamming in the in-feed mechanism, your first step should be to use the upper feed control bar to reverse the material out, reposition it, and feed it again. Trim the material if it continues to present feeding problems. If the discharge chute or chipper housing becomes plugged, you will need to completely shut the machine down in order to clear the problem. Do not try to remove a plug while the engine is running. Follow the normal shutdown procedures as described in your operator's manual. Place the upper feed control bar into neutral. Reduce the engine speed to idle. Wait for the engine to slow to idle before disengaging the drive mechanism. Shut off the engine and remove the key. The cutter disc or drum will continue to rotate for some time after the drive mechanism is disengaged. Before opening up the chipper housing, check that the disc or cutter wheel has come to a complete stop. Depending on the chipper, check either the bearings or the drive belts of the cutter mechanism to make certain that the rotation has stopped. If quicker access to the cutting mechanism is desired, shutting off the engine from idle while the drive mechanism remains engaged will reduce disc or drum coast down time. Do not open up the chipper housing to check for rotation. Do not restart the disc or drum while the housing is open. You can be struck by thrown objects or be severely cut by the rotating disc or drum. Follow your operator's manual for the proper way to gain access to a plugged discharge chute or chipper housing. Wear gloves when cleaning out the plugged area and use caution when working near the exposed cutter knives. Thoroughly clean the plugged area before closing the housing. If material builds up around the feed mechanism and impairs operation, follow your operator's manual for directions on how to access and clean the in-feed mechanism. Never climb onto the feed table for any reason unless the machine is completely shut down and all components have stopped moving. Chipping knives and the drum or disc should be inspected periodically and maintained according to the instructions provided with your machine. Vermeer brush chippers will be productive for you only when the chipping system is properly installed, adjusted, and maintained. Inspection and maintenance are essential. If a machine component is loose, damaged, or out of adjustment, and you continue to use the machine, a cutting component may break loose and become a dangerous projectile. Not only will this cause extensive damage to the machine, but may cause death or serious personal injury. Following safe working practices when feeding brush into a brush chipper is absolutely essential. Use good judgment when operating your Vermeer brush chipper. Respect the potential dangers and the fatal consequences of improper operation.